You don't lack direction. You lack trust in your own direction. That's the difference. And that gap between knowing and moving is what I call disillusionment despite direction. If you listen to the previous episode, you already know this is one of the deepest confidence dents. If you didn't, that's okay, because today we're going to unpack how this dent forms, how attachment wires it into your nervous system, and how to rebuild the personal power of confidence at the structural level. Not hype, not affirmations, structural confidence. Let's get into it.
You're listening to The Science and Spirit of Happy, a podcast unpacking the sustainable dreams theory. This revolutionary work is grounded in a simple truth, that your dream is your destiny. And your happiness is just a symbol of your purpose unfolding.
G'day, y'all! Welcome back. This is part B of the personal power of confidence. We're talking about the biggest confidence dent, disillusionment despite direction. So in the last episode, we laid the foundation. Your life is not built from your intentions, okay? It's built from your shape. Your shape depicts where you fit, and your shape is molded by your attachment style, your calibration, your early childhood experiences and patterning, your nervous system's definition of what is safe, possible, allowed, and sustainable. And when I talk about dents, I'm talking about pressure that imprinted itself on your shape, okay? I'm not talking catastrophic trauma. I'm talking about what I call micro trauma, moments where your confidence surfaced, you knew what you wanted and you intended to get it, but attunement from caregivers didn't meet it, where they actively, maybe even unintentionally, thwarted it. Moments when your natural drive surfaced, where you wanted to go and you went for it, but support from the people around you didn't rise to the occasion. Maybe they even dismissed or discouraged it. Those dents, over time, turn into deficits. That's when your own patterning upholds the dent. This is where people really get into trouble with confidence and with building their sustainable dream life, because confidence is what I call a personal power. It's one of 8 necessary capacities that make success inevitable. They're natural. You were born with them intact, and they'd have been developed wonderfully in an ideal environment, which is the real reason some people seem to live charmed lives. The dents are the real reason some people can't get ahead no matter how hard they try, or get the goals but still feel hollow. And today we're focusing on one specific confidence dent, disillusionment despite direction. So let's take one of the biggest confidence dents and really sit with it, okay? Disillusionment despite direction. That's when you're disillusioned by your own dream, okay? Your own vision. That's when you know what you want, but you still can't move forward confidently. You can't commit. On the outside, your life might look like this, right? You know the city you want to live in. You know the kind of work that lights you up. You know the relationship that just is not it. You know the relationship that would be it. You know the project that has your name written all over it, okay? So direction is not the issue. You can journal about it. Maybe you can make some moves towards it. You can vision board about it. You can talk about it in therapy. You know, you can try manifestation tactics to try and make it happen in some other way. You can explain it beautifully to someone else. But when the time comes to really go for it, you need more time, more research, more money, one more course, one more credential, one more social scroll, and then you'll get to it. Something else becomes a bigger priority. So you say things like, I have to be realistic. It's just not the right time. I should do XYZ first. Or she could do that, but not me. I want to be very clear here, okay? To this person, this doesn't feel like hesitation, right? It feels like legitimacy because internally it is. And this is the key. Your inner direction can be crystal clear and your system can still experience it as unsafe. That's what attachment does. It doesn't erase your desire. It teaches your body what desire costs. So the vision stays and confidence collapses. Not because you don't want it, but because your nervous system remembers what happened last time you reached. Okay, so quick recap so you understand what I mean when I say intuitive IQ. Intuitive IQ is your capacity to trust your inner direction, to treat your internal yes or no as real data. And when I talk about SoulSet, I mean your patterning around who you are and where you're meant to go. This layer is very enmeshed with your nervous system responses, your nervous system patterning. When intuitive IQ is strong, your inner direction feels trustworthy. When it's dented, you still get the signal, but your system distrusts it. And when those layers combine with how you think, mindset, how you feel, heart set, and how you function physically, body set, that becomes what I call your reality IQ. Each one of these layers has their own IQ. Reality IQ is the way you interpret your life and move through it. So watch what happens in this dent, because it's the perfect example of intuitive IQ and attachment colliding. Your soul, your intuitive IQ, is calling out the vision. Just like an acorn would feel the pull towards its own developmental path. You're an oak, go be the oak, reach for the sky. You see the vision, but your shape, your body, your patterning at the same time is firing a stress cycle in response. Fear. And your mind is building a logical story around it, saying, see, look at the risk. I'm right to hold back. It's smart to hold off. The sun will always be there tomorrow, not now. But if we zoom in on what's actually happening, it looks like this. Your intuitive IQ sends a clear signal. This is yours. Move this way. Your attachment-shaped nervous system remembers old equations. When I reached before, it was met with shame, withdrawal, chaos, nothing. The stress system lights up as if there is a real present tense threat. Cortisol spikes, threat detection narrows your focus to everything that could go wrong. You feel a rush of this isn't safe, this isn't right. The crazy thing about an activated nervous system is it largely takes the most intelligent parts of your brain offline. So you can't really think straight. Inevitably, instead of reading the responses as old wiring, you read it as current reality. Something is off, okay? I'm not ready. I can't be. This was stupid to even wish for. Or I'm too stressed out. I need one more scroll to relax. Believe me, I've been there, okay? I had chronic anxiety for all my life growing up, and I still face these walls as I grow into more visibility and more power. So you do the only thing that ever felt safe. You don't move. And the craziest thing is that immobility, that scared, frozen, or heightened anxious feeling, it feels like home. From the outside, it looks like chronic second guessing, paralysis despite vision, over-preparing, over-researching, starting, stopping, restarting, waiting for certainty before acting, distracting, self-sabotage. From the inside, it feels like this is the only sane response. And that's what makes what I call microtrauma so sneaky. The Dents don't announce themselves like, hi, I'm an old attachment injury. Or, hey, I'm your lack of self-confidence. Well, I'd say overthinking and people-pleasing is probably the right move right now. Seriously, if you know these things about yourself, that's a sign of a pretty high self-awareness comparatively. Because it usually presents as, no, seriously, look at the facts. This is just not realistic for you. Just look at any comments section. All the people trolling that someone's good life is just not real or good or even desirable. Because when people go so far in this direction of feeling like they can't have it, they start telling themselves that they don't even want it. I recall years ago a tarot reader emphatically telling me, "You are a writer." And I thought that was the dumbest job, okay? A ludicrous thing to be. Now I've got a lit degree under my belt, a background working in academic editing, and my first book was just published, okay? In truth, a lack of confidence does not react to the facts. It's filtering and reframing the facts. Here's the part almost no one says explicitly. You were born with the personal power of confidence. Not in its mature, grown-up form, obviously, but as a birthright you arrived with. The right to take up space, the right to reach, the right to be here, the right to keep figuring yourself out. In public. A baby doesn't sit in the crib thinking, should I really try to roll over? Do I have enough evidence that I can? They just try. They reach because that's what life does. It reaches. Confidence matures as you attempt, you wobble, you repair, you try again. But the core isn't, I have proof I will succeed. The core is, I'm allowed to exist while I learn. I'm allowed to get this wrong and still be here. I'm allowed to keep going and try again. When that core gets dented early, when repair is inconsistent, when missteps cost you attunement, when taking up space make things tenser instead of safer, your system doesn't just learn, I might fail. It learns, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not the kind of person who is allowed to try. Maybe I should shrink my wants until they match what others will embrace. So by the time you're an adult, sitting there with a vision board and a nervous system in full fight or flight, it really does feel like low confidence is just an honest reading of the room. Look at my history. Look at my patterns. Of course I shouldn't be all in. But those patterns are outputs of the dented shape. The lock you were formed to fit. They came later. They're not proof you were never meant for more. The lack of confidence came first. The evidence grew around it. Now we've zoomed in on disillusionment despite direction, but it sits in a small family of confidence dents that all share the same root: chronic second guessing. You loop on decisions, revisit old choices, endlessly reevaluate. The second is difficulty choosing without reassurance. You feel physically unsettled until someone else agrees with you. Another one is external validation dependence. So your inner yes doesn't feel real until someone outside you mirrors it. The fourth one is over-preparing instead of trying. This is why you can get great business supplies like cameras or other office tech gear really cheap secondhand, because it's so common for people to equate buying the gear with putting the work in that they go broke and end up selling the gear that is almost brand new, really discounted. Okay, another one is fear of being wrong. Okay, not just I don't want to mess up, but a desperate fear of losing something that's comforted you. Like if I'm wrong, I won't know who I am anymore. Another dent is outsourcing authority to others. That's when coaches, experts, friends, partners, you're looking to someone who can carry the risk for you. Okay, and again, these are not personality quirks. Okay, they're not proof that you're weak or just not that kind of person. Okay, they're all intuitive IQ dents in the SoulSet District. They're systematic, okay? They are micro traumas from repeated misattunements that turned into a shape that fits a very specific reality, a nervous system that has learned to see its own desire as suspicious and its own direction as unreliable. So this is why this matters. Because the moment you can see, oh, I'm lacking in the personal power of confidence, and that isn't a reflection of the truth about me, then you have the ability to say, wow, it's a reflection of what happened to me. Then you've already loosened the lock. You're already changing your shape. You're no longer arguing with reality, okay? You're seeing your shape for what it is. The next phase is just realizing how malleable that actually is. The entire premise of my work is this. When you reshape the inner patterns, you automatically start fitting a different life. So, if dents and deficits are one side of the story, what does it feel like when the personal power of confidence is fully developed? When your intuitive IQ and soul set aren't fighting your direction anymore, but amplifying it. This is the point where life stops feeling like you're dragging a boulder uphill and starts to feel more like a hike you've always wanted to go on, carrying a backpack of goodies you've chosen to enjoy along the way. And in a grounded and very real way, life feels a little bit charmed. Like, not objectively perfect, certainly not challenge-free, but life itself seems meaningfully on your side. And things work out in your favor. I'm sure you know a person who just seems really lucky, like they're carrying a charm that means things just kind of work out for them. That's a sign of a high intuitive IQ. Let's bring this back to the IIQ dent, the confidence deficit we talked about earlier, disillusionment despite direction. We talked about what that looks like, right? You have the vision, but things don't work out for you when you try to move towards it. So developing the personal power of confidence is how that dent heals. And these are some of the things that happen when the shape of your confidence heals, grows, and strengthens into the personal power it was meant to be. Okay, so 1, your inner yes lights you up and you follow it. Okay, at base to high intuitive IQ, your intuition is not a faint whisper you catch once a year. Okay, it's a steady, recognizable signal. You get a hit about a move, a project, a conversation, a relationship shift, and your body does that specific thing. A quiet click, a little rush, a sense of, this. The pros cons list might still be messy. You might not know how it all works out yet, but your system can tell this lights me up and that matters. The difference now is you don't immediately talk yourself out of it. You don't file it under cute, but not for me. You don't need 6 extra contingency plans before you're allowed to take a step. You let the signal register. You trust it. You let it inform your next move. High intuitive IQ confidence isn't about having more intuition than other people. It's about having more access to it and being able to utilize it more efficiently. Having the nervous system patterning to treat it as real data. This is the antidote to disillusionment despite direction. The gap between I know what I want and I actually move toward it finally closes. Number 2, boundaries arise from integrity, not from panic. One of the clearest markers of developed confidence is what happens to boundaries. Most of us are being taught boundaries are barriers we erect, okay? Not integrity with our natural outline. The discussion around boundaries sounds like lines in the sand, ultimatums, I'm done energy, pushing things away, keeping people out. In reality, that's often actually a lack of boundaries. that requires those responses. It's most certainly normally a lack of boundaries which bring you to a situation like this to begin with, okay? High intuitive IQ and the personal power of confidence do boundaries totally differently. They arise from energetic integrity. People who have good boundaries don't have to enact them, usually. Some people enjoy violating boundaries and social media allows them to run rampant, but a high intuitive IQ, and most certainly a high reality IQ, which is the sum of all 4 IQs, mind, heart, soul, and body, means you usually aren't around those people because your shape doesn't fit there. And again, no shade to those having to enact firm boundaries, okay? That's part of the process. There's no victim blaming here. In the book, I talk about going through a hellish time for months last year with toxic relatives. Toxic relatives I've barely met, trying to pillage my father's estate. And there I was, using all my old dented skills, trying to cope with these totally destructive people, drawing boundaries they violated again and again. Why? Because I thought I was legally obligated to. But I'd never looked into that story I was telling myself in detail. I was telling myself this is how it had to be without knowing absolutely. That was most certainly a dent showing itself that I had to heal and grow through. That's not my fault, but it is my responsibility. And even when you're developing into a high reality IQ, which is becoming the conscious creator, you'll still find dents along the way. That's the work, man. But you can tell boundaries aren't supposed to be barriers you erect primarily because they don't work anyhow. Those barriers you're erecting, those boundaries you're enacting. How many people have you had to, quote unquote, draw a boundary with who turned around and said, oh yeah, I totally see your point. I was overstepping. My bad. It'll never happen again. And actually, I have more respect for you now. Okay, probably not that many. That's because real boundaries actually look like recognizing subconsciously, this doesn't fit who I am or the life I'm building. So you don't even want to reply to the baiting text. Engage in a chat that makes you feel small. Accept the opportunity that's misaligned. Or over-explain yourself to people who have no intention of understanding you. Which includes explaining your boundaries. You don't normally announce the boundary, okay? You enact it. You're not trying to control other people. You're simply filling out your own shape. That's a real boundary. And because your outline is clearer, your edge is felt. You actually have to enforce far fewer boundaries out loud. People feel where you begin and end. And you simply do not fit the people who chronically overstep. Your boundary is no longer, you can't treat me like that or I'll disappear, while you wait for them to change. It becomes, you're free to be you, and I'm free to place you where you actually belong in my life. Which only actually fits people who respect your dignity. That's confidence as a structural reality. That's a developed IIQ. Number 3, your system can hold a bigger life. Okay, high intuitive IQ confidence doesn't erase stress. It changes what your nervous system does with it. You still feel it. The flutter before the launch, the adrenaline before the conversation, the wobble of being seen in a new way. But stress rises, and then your system knows how to come back down. Your breath deepens, the thoughts soften, your shoulder drops, you come home to yourself. This is what it means to hold a bigger life. It means I can be activated and I can recover. I can be stretched and I won't shatter. That's the lived experience of recoverability. That's what we've been talking about all episode. Number 4, life starts to synchronize. Okay, you get that grounded, charmed life reality. This is the part that feels a little bit magical, where the manifestation world has grabbed onto something real and wildly oversimplified it. When your intuitive IQ is high and your confidence is intact, your energetic center is aligned with your purpose, your dream, and your destiny. You're no longer broadcasting, I want this life, but I don't believe I'm allowed to move toward it. You're broadcasting, I'm moving this way and I'm available for what aligns with that. And then you start noticing the email arriving at exactly the right moment, the apartment opening up when you were ready to shift, the random job, client, collaborator that matches what you've quietly been growing into, the hard no that turns out to be a strangely perfect protection. From the outside, people call this luck, charisma, privilege. From the inside, it feels like my inner world and outer world are finally talking to one another. To be clear, other people still have free will, okay? Life is still hard, things still happen, but your shape is different. You're no longer unconsciously picking situations that fit your dents, saying yes to people who drain you, ignoring opportunities that are actually for you, self-sabotaging, shying away from visibility, leadership, influence. Because of that, more of what does align can actually find you. High intuitive IQ confidence doesn't mean everything is easy, but it certainly means everything is easier. I'm supported. This is doable. It means your effort is finally pointed in the right direction. And life can cooperate instead of constantly feeling like it's blocking you. It doesn't mean you never doubt, okay? It doesn't mean you never cry on the kitchen floor. Indeed, when stakes are higher, you might. It means that underneath all of that, there is a growing sense of, I'm allowed to be here. I'm allowed to want what I want. I'm allowed to move towards it. And life is willing to meet me there. And you'll have support in your times of need. Your nervous system can come back to baseline. You move on. Better than before. One step closer. A little bit higher. That's the magic of an intuitive IQ and the personal power of confidence. And now that we've mapped where confidence can take you, the next question is, can you actually stay with the life it points you toward, or stay with the growth that's needed in order to enjoy it? That's the work of the next personal power, comfort. So if we boil this all the way down, the personal power of confidence is not a vibe. It's definitely not a personality type. It's your soul set developed, matured. Your inner signal is clear. Your nervous system is balanced, and your sense of self is steady enough that getting it wrong doesn't feel like the end of you, but just part of the process. When the personal power of confidence is dented, that signal is still going to be there. Your spirit doesn't change and it doesn't stop directing, but your system has been shaped to distrust it. So some stall, some distract, some panic, okay? And some blame the world at large. The social structure, the economy, and call it realism. Well, all the while that dent, that deficit, is just really old attachment patterning and an underdeveloped or downright damaged stress circuitry running the show. When the personal power of confidence is restored, repatterned, more developed, the outside doesn't suddenly become easy or risk-free. The social structure certainly doesn't change. The powers that be don't suddenly falter. What changes is you. And ironically, the changes that need to be made in the systems that govern our lives, internally and externally, are only accessible from this place. The place where decisions land, risk undertaking for your purpose feels meaningful, and moving towards what's yours, your vision, your beliefs, your true shape, starts to feel like the most honest and straightforward thing you can do. This is exactly the kind of reshaping work I teach inside the membership, where we actually practice rebuilding these personal powers, confidence included, in real time. If you want support turning this from insight into muscle memory, all of that will be linked in the show notes. If you want to understand more of how these patterns develop, definitely get my book, Be Yourself, Not Your Parents. And in the next episode, we're going to complete this SoulSet pair, because confidence can elicit action, that's for sure, but it doesn't guarantee your feet are hitting the ground on the way. Because action without grounding can simply be a response to anxiety. And don't I know it? I traveled all over the world and built a career as a chef, working under Michelin stars and culinary Olympians when I was still running from myself. And that ended in burnout, okay? It ended with me in Asia trying to recoup, seeing a vision of a better life and giving everything I had to figuring out how to get there. And I will tell you with confidence that if you can't stay with reality, firmly rooted in what's going on right now, you can make the most confident moves available to you and still end up nowhere. So next time, we're talking about the personal power of comfort, the part of you that lets you stay present with your own life, that makes healing feel beautiful, or at least bearable, instead of brutal. And that is the unsung hero of personal and professional development. It's the key that unlocks real change. Confidence tells you where to go, but comfort decides whether you can be there. So I'll see you in the next episode, and I hope you join me in the membership. See you then.